Welcome to the complete animation of the Wicked Stepmother from Walt Disney Animation Studios' masterpiece, Cinderella. I recently rewatched Cinderella again using the 4K release. The footage that you're seeing here is just 1080p, but the 4K version of this movie is gorgeous. It is so beautiful. And the story itself is actually a really good adaptation of the classic Cinderella story. And it's really well paced. They spend just enough time where they need to in order to establish the world and the characters and everything that's happening. And then it doesn't spend a second more than it needs to. It is a very tightly paced movie, and it's really well animated. This is back in the era when all Disney movies had hand-painted backgrounds and hand-painted animation cells. And it is really good. And the audio quality is much higher than it was in some of the earlier movies like Snow White or Bambi. This is just a really good, high-quality movie. It's not my favorite Disney movie, but it's a really good one. And this character of the wicked or evil stepmother, they make her just the right kind of horrible in this movie, where she doesn't do all that bad all on her own most of the time, but she knows exactly how to goad her two daughters into doing awful things to Cinderella, and then she never stops them from doing it. I really like how the character works in this movie, but I do take issue with how this movie and just the whole Cinderella story in general really isn't fair to step parents. Because what is a step parent? It is when a parent loses their spouse either through divorce or death, and then they remarry, and that parent like the newly married parent is a step parent. That is it. There is nothing about being a step parent that means that you have to be awful to your child. And I just get the feeling that this movie is sort of unfair to that entire class of people, because I know of step parents who do everything in their power to be a good parent to their child. And they're good. Like, they basically aren't even step parents at that point. I think that this movie is sort of unfair to that class of people who genuinely try to be good parents to their stepchildren. But the animation here, I believe, is because these are just human characters. I believe you can see hints of how Disney used reference footage when animating their human characters. And it's not rotoscoping. So many people say that Disney rotoscoped characters. Rotoscoping means that you basically put an animation cell over the footage and then just trace over it. That is not what Disney did. That's not what anybody who did. Read Don Bluth's biography, and he talks about it. You're not tracing, you're just using it as reference footage. Even Pixar uses reference footage. Like, in one of the special scenes for the special features on the DVD for Ratatouille, they talk about how they use reference footage for all sorts of things, like the scene where Linguini is taking his big bike through too small of a door into his apartment, and now he has to yank it around and finagle it in so that it actually goes in. they showed the reference footage they used. There was no tracing involved. They just were constantly looking at it for inspiration of how they wanted to animate their own character. Now, this scene right here is really interesting because I think this is the most like highly detailed hands I've ever seen in animation. Like these hands are just really detailed here, and the inside of that pocket, like this scene where it goes really close into the stepmother's hands and pocket to show the mice doing stuff, did like it's just really interesting the perspective that this movie takes sometimes with how close it takes the camera into areas, especially when dealing with mice. And I like how this movie ends. They didn't like the only comeuppance that they got is that their plans didn't work. Thanks for watching.